Alright, this is going to be our first session of our camps. Now, you guys should call it party camp stores. First, we're going to talk to Rex, because if I go to talk to somebody else, mid-conversation, he starts barking. So, go talk to Rex first, so don't shut him out.
Oh, why, you little...
Did you jump at the side of your own shadow again?
Oh, you're so funny. Such rapier wit. Your furry friend here took offence at me getting near his food. He snapped at me. Look.
Good boy. Teach that silly Alistair a lesson.
Sometimes I forget that he's a war dog. That'll teach me. I once heard a really old legend about how the Hound warriors in the days of the old tribes would feed their Mabari the flesh of the vanquished. Well, that's what I heard anyway. It would sometimes be human flesh. Oh, like you can tell the difference. For all you know, maybe you've already been fed something. Someone...
Oh, don't listen to Alistair. He's full of rubbish.
Hey!
Look at what your fool dog placed in my pack. A putrid, half-eaten hare is not something a woman wants to find in her unmentionables.
It's the thought that counts. He means well.
The dirty mongrel can have this back. There. And tell him not to do it again.
Don't do it again. You're a war dog, not a nursemaid. What's all this racket?
I seek to understand the dog. We fight alongside each other, and I must discover the strength of his heart.
Do you know what he's talking about, Rex?
The true warrior understands.
Stop that. You're making a mess. Alright, let's shut him up for a little while. Alright, I'm gonna go over here to this guy over here who's standing here. And he has to do with the DLC, one of the DLCs that just popped up, which is Soldier's Pink.
You're a hard man to find. Where are my manners? The name is Levy Dryden. Did Duncan ever mention me? Levy of the coins? Levy the trader?
I'm Jordan. I've never heard of you.
Really? He never told you of old Levy? We've known each other for years. But here I am carrying on while you have a blight to stop. Don't want to waste your time. But you see, Duncan promised that together we'd look into something important for the Wardens. And for me. But poor Duncan's. Well, no more. A tragedy it is, at that. But I know he would want his work carried on. His pledge fulfilled.
Okay. Yeah, how do you know Duncan?
It's a bit of a tale, that is. But I'm the one who brought the Grey Wardens back to Ferelden. Well, I was one of the ones. There were a lot of us. Make us breath, I'm a bit nervous. Honoured to be here, really.
Okay. Go ahead, tell me your tale.
After King Marek freed us from the Orlesians, the Grey Wardens begged the King's permission to come into Ferelden, some sort of internal business. Me and a mess of other Warden sympathisers spoke on behalf of your order. Tan Loghain was very much against letting Orlesian Wardens in the kingdom. But Marek, Andraste, bless him, was a fair-minded monarch and he let them in. So that's why I was there when the Wardens and their leader, Genevieve, presented herself to the King. The first Wardens in Ferelden in over a century. Proudest state of my life, that was. Duncan was a bit of a skank back then. We were of an age and struck up a friendship. The king himself went with the wardens on their mysterious business. When he returned, he rescinded King Ardland's decree, and the wardens came back to Ferelden for good. Oh, my stomach's all aflutter. You're welcome.
So what's the promise that, what promise did Duncan make you?
My family, well, past a bit checkered to see. Nobles look at us with disdain. My great-great-grandmother, Sophia Dryden, was the last warden commander of Ferelden back when the wardens were known as freeloaders. So King Ardland banished the wardens, and he took House Dryden's land and titles.
Okay, what happened next?
Hard to say. After King Ardland died, there was a civil war, loads worse than this one. And our family was on the run, hunted by enemies, with nary a friend in the world. But Drydens are tough. We rebuilt, became merchants, and we never lost our pride.
I'm surprised you kept the name.
Our family's only crime was guarding the kingdom against the blight. We're not ashamed of that.
So, what favor did you ask Duncan?
I asked for the truth. My family reveres Sophia Dryden. We know she died at the old Grey Warden base, Soldier's Peak. We want evidence to clear her name. It won't restore our land or our titles, but it'll restore our honour.
Okay. I've never heard of Soldier's Peak.
Well, no one's been to Soldier's Peak since Ardland's days. At least none that's come back. I spent years mapping the maze of tunnels to the peak, and I found the way a few years back. So I went to Duncan, I did, and I said that he could reclaim the old base and my family could have its honour.
Why didn't Duncan help you?
Darkspawn surfaced in southern Ferelden, and Duncan got plenty busy recruiting new wardens and meeting with good King Cailan. Duncan said he would help after the Battle of Ostagar. Said there might be useful things at the peak, but he never had the chance.
How will reclaiming the peak help the wardens?
Soldier's Peak is strategic and symbolic importance. Duncan said that it would be worth it right there. He also hoped to recover lost warden history and perhaps a few old relics. No one knows what's up there now.
Okay, let's go to Soldier's Peak.
1,000 blessings upon you, Warden. I'll mark down the location on your map. When you arrive, we'll pick our way through the tunnels together.
Ah, it's good to see you, my timely rescuer. Bodon Fennick, at your service once again. I saw your camp and thought to myself, what safer place to rest for the evening than in the camp of a Grey Warden? I'm perfectly willing to offer you a fine discount for the inconvenience of our presence. How does that sound? Good? Yes?
Choo-choo! It's another train in the background. You're free to stay, just mind yourself.
Wonderful. Thank the gentleman, won't you, boy?
Thank you, sir.
We won't be a bother to you and your companions, I assure you. If you should need enchantments, simply talk to my boy. Otherwise, come speak with me.
Oh, that reminds me. I think I picked up a sword. If I remember correctly. Where is it? Ah, there it is. Oathkeeper. Much better than the sword I was carrying. Speaking of weapons, probably equip our new friend here. After all, he has no armor, like at all, on weapons, and he's a two-handed weapon specialist. Now you see I have things labeled as gifts. That's because they go to certain things like this tribal necklace that goes to Morgan.
A fine gift. You have my thanks.
But some gifts don't go to one particular person. You can give them to anybody, like the silver bracelet. You can give that to anybody. The beef bone goes to the dog, but I understood why the dog has gifts, considering it always 100% loyal. But whatever. And this one right here, the bronze symbol of Andraste, that's for, I'm just gonna call her Lily.
That's a wonderful thought. I don't know what...
And then this one, the statue, the small carving statue, is for Alistair.
I could get used to this, you know.
But this one and right here is for a character we don't have, a companion we don't have as of yet. Alright, let's see if we got anything better than what you got. Equipped. Nope. That one's got achievements on it, so you can put that. Nope. No. No. Okay. Was that the only 200 weapon I had on me? Yeah, it's okay. I still need to up my strength some more before I can use that. I can use that now. It's better than the armor I'm wearing, but it's like armor. I wear heavy. Well then, what is thing on stunts armor? Is this the same as mine, or is it? Oh, it's better. Okay. Come on.
Hello. The boy's a bit simple, but he's rather good with enchantments. One of those tranquil fellas actually called him what was it now? A savant. I had no idea such a thing existed.
What enchantments does he do?
He can fold lyrium into almost any weapon or piece of armor, though naturally some of the more extravagant materials will take more lyrium than others. It's a process that some of the master smiths back in Orzammar will perform, but my boy here is just as adept at it. Isn't that right, boy?
Enchantment!
And there you have it.
Enchantment!
I only have one rune at the moment, so I'll just equip it to the sword I currently have equipped.
If there's anything I can do for you, please, please tell me. I'm sure you'll be pleased with the goods my boy and I have collected, and with your discount.
Oh, it was an offload. Oh, that's a nice axe. Oh, what about that shield? Ooh, that's a nice shield too. Let's get rid of all these. Oh, I should give that to Morrigan. She is a mage after all. Now these right here, they kind of act like the injury kits, but it's for the dog. But we already have the injury kits, so I need that for it. And then down here, there's the golden rope necklace. That's also for Morgan. And then these are the festive gifts. Each one is for a particular person. Like this Grey Warden hand puppet, that's for Alistair. The stick, that's for the dog. The fat lute, that's for Lily. That one is for a person that may or may not join our group. I don't know. That Alistair doll, that's for Morgan. That's for someone else. That's also for somebody else, which hasn't joined our group yet. That one is for Sten. And that one is for also a person who has not joined our group yet. And that one too. And then he also has a backpack upgrade, which I'm going to get that. I'm just going to get something just in the little quest. I'm just going to pick up the stick for the dog.
I am grateful.
After you give the dog the stick, it becomes a thing you can throw it. See,
We have much to do.
Play fetch. Play fetch. Play fetch. This is play fetch with the dog. It's kind of funny. Alright, who should we talk to next? I've done chatting with the dog. Hopefully that will shut him up for a while. Nope, he's gonna keep barking.
Yes? Well, here I am. I knew this would come up sooner or later. I don't know how to explain, but I had a dream. In it, there was an impenetrable darkness. It was so dense, so real. And there was a noise, a terrible, ungodly noise. I stood on a peak and watched as the darkness consumed everything. And when the storm swallowed the last of the sun's light, I fell, and the darkness drew me in.
So it was just a dream. Why say it's a vision?
I have had dreams. This was different somehow. When I woke, I went to the Chantry's gardens, as I always do. But that day, the rose bush in the corner had flowered. Everyone knew that bush was dead. It was grey and twisted and gnarled, the ugliest thing you ever saw. But there it was, a single beautiful rose. It was as though the Maker stretched out his hand to say, even in the midst of this darkness, there is hope and beauty. Have faith.
And this made you want to help me?
In my dream, I fell, or maybe I jumped. I'd do anything to stop the blight. I know that we can do it. There are so many good things in the Maker's world. How can I sit by while the blight devours everything?
I suppose I couldn't sit by either.
That is why you're a Grey Warden. Come, there's a blight to stop. Yes? Well, here I am. Quiet. It was a life suited for contemplation. In the cloister, away from the fuss and the flurry of the cities, I found peace. And in that stillness, I could hear the Maker. But it was not perfect. Some of my Chantry fellows were condescending. That is the nature of religious folk, I suppose.
Condescending? Well, how so?
When I talked about my beliefs, that the Maker reveals himself in the beauty of his world, they treated me with disdain. They want to believe that he's gone, so that when he turns his gaze on them, it means they are special, chosen. He cannot possibly have love for all, the sick and the weary, the beggars and the fools.
What did you say to them?
What can I say to them? What they believe is what the Chantry says, and the Chantry is infallible, yes? Maybe I am wrong. But it is the Maker's place to decide if I am worthy, not men, not the Chantry. But there is work to be done, and I have talked enough for now. Yes? Well, here I am. What is meant by someone like me?
Well, they don't teach you how to fight in the Chantry, do they?
Did you think I was always a cloistered sister? The Chantry provides succor and safe harbor to all who seek it. I chose to stay and become affirmed.
Affirmed?
We affirm our belief in the Maker, in Andraste and the Chant, but other than that, there are no vows taken.
So your skills were learned before your time in the Chantry.
I was a traveling minstrel in Orlais. Tales and songs were my life. I performed, and they rewarded me with applause and coin. And my skill in battle? Well, you pick up different skills when you travel, yes? Yes, of course. Let's move on. Yes? Well, here I am.
We'll get back to her shortly.
Why are we stopping? There are darkspawn to be fought. Is this delay needful? You are concerned. No need. I am fit enough to fight. No. People are not simple. They cannot be summarized for easy reference in the manner of the elves are a lithe, pointy-eared people who excel at poverty. I am. I have always fought in war, dwarf. My people have been at war since the moment we set foot in the Northern Islands. Words fail when your opponent's native language is deceit. I do not see how this matters. Seheron and Parvolan are distant. Ferelden and the Darkspawn are immediate. As you wish. Yes. Sitting, as you observed. Thank you. I did. Parshera, was there anything else? Speak, then. Then I suggest we move on. As you wish.
Sten is not really the conversational guy, because his conversations are really short.
Yes. I am hardly surprised. To answer a question. The Arishok asked what is the Blight. By his curiosity, I am now here. The one who commands the Antam, the body of the Kunari. Kunari have no kings. Little patience for endless questions. A portion of it. Were you not at Ostagar when the army was overwhelmed? That is your answer. Why do you? Exactly. You don't ask, nor do I. The Arishok sends me and I go. Yes. I cannot go home. It doesn't matter now. Can we move on? We keep the Darkspawn waiting. As you wish.
Yeah, once we get our friendship higher with Sten, he'll confess why he cannot go back home.
What do you need? You don't have to do that. I know you didn't know him as long as I did.
That doesn't mean I don't mourn his loss.
I should have handled it better. Duncan warned me right from the beginning that this could happen. Any of us could die in battle. I shouldn't have lost it, not when so much is riding on us, not with the Blight and everything. I'm sorry. You're right. This isn't really the time to mourn, is it? Not when there's so many who are still going to die unless we do something. Mourning can come later. By the time the snows come, this will all be done one way or the other. What do you need? Ask away. Essentially, they're trained to fight. The Chantry would tell you that the Templars exist simply to defend. But don't let them fool you. They're an army. The other main purpose for a Templar is, of course, to hunt mages. To that end, we train in talents that drain mana and disrupt spells. You could call it that, sure. The Chantry doesn't look on it the same way, however, since really our talents only work on mages. Against a regular person, I'm just a guy in a metal suit. Perhaps, but there usually isn't much of an opportunity. The Chantry keeps a close rein on its Templars. We are given lyrium to help develop our magical talents, you see. Which means we become addicted. And since the Chantry controls the lyrium trade with the dwarves, well, I'm sure you can put two and two together. Thankfully, no. You only start receiving lyrium once you've taken your vows. You don't need lyrium in order to learn the Templar talents. Lyrium just makes Templar's talents more effective, or so I was told. Maybe it doesn't even do that. The Chantry usually doesn't let their Templars get away either, so they can spread their secrets. I'm a bit of an exception. Lucky me. What do you need? Ask away. Such as they are. That's a good question. There's plenty in Orlais, but who knows where they might be found. And the nearest Orlesian city is weeks away. If we go north and cross the sea, there's bound to be some in the Free Marches. Again, however, I just don't know where. I don't know anything about Grey Wardens in other lands. Here in Ferelden, there's our compound in Denerim at the palace, but that's it. Loghain will have control over that and be watching it, no doubt. Beyond that, the only place I know of is Weishaupt Fortress. That's the headquarters of all Grey Wardens in the Anderfells, 1,000 miles from here. But I've no idea how to even contact them. So unless we try to get back to the compound in Denerim, I suppose the answer is no. There's nowhere for us to go. I imagine that eventually the Grey Wardens outside of Ferelden will wonder what's happened. Why there's no contact from Duncan or someone. They'll send someone eventually. Though who knows what Loghain's people in Denerim will tell them. Maybe they won't send anyone. We could try to contact them. But that would mean leaving Ferelden, and even if we did, they couldn't come back with us in time to stop the Blight. So that means whatever happens, it's up to us. I mean, eventually we would have to use the joining to make more Grey Wardens, right? But I don't know how to do the joining, or what's involved. I know it involves lyrium and some other magic, and that it's really difficult to prepare, but that's it. Unless we can find out more about the joining, I guess we better get used to the idea that there might only be two of us for now. Until more come from elsewhere. Just left? You mean just left Ferelden? I don't know. If there's an archdemon, however, we're supposed to be the only ones who can defeat it. And that means the Blight would grow unchecked. Eventually, other Grey Wardens in Orlais and other lands would hear about it, and they would come to fight it, but they wouldn't come in time to save Ferelden. There's no way. I'm not going anywhere. About the Grey Wardens, anyhow. Fair enough. What do you need? Ask away. Same way you did. You drink some blood, you choke on it, and pass out. You haven't forgotten already, have you? I do my best. What can I say? Let's see, I was in the Chantry before. I trained for many years to become a Templar, in fact. That's where I learned most of my skills. You're telling me I was banished to the kitchens to scour the pots more times than I can count. And that's a lot. I can count pretty high. The Grand Cleric didn't want to let me go. Duncan was forced to conscript me, actually, and was she ever furious when he did. I thought she was going to have us both arrested. I was lucky. I wondered that myself. It's not as if she valued me highly. I think she just didn't want to give anything to the Grey Wardens, is all. The Chantry didn't lose much. And I think I can do more fighting the Blight anyhow, rather than sitting in a temple somewhere. I'll always be thankful to Duncan for recruiting me. If it hadn't been for him, you know, I wouldn't have. He was a good man who didn't deserve his fate. That much I'm sure of. Come on, let's go. I think I'm done talking.
So I don't get is how is it that Duncan died? I mean, we saw in the cutscene that one of the Darkspawn threw their axe in his face, but and then the screen just went blank. So we don't know if he actually died.
What do you need? Ask away. Oh, did I say that? I meant the dogs raised me. Giant slobbering dogs from the Anderfells. A whole pack of them, in fact. Well, it wasn't until I was 8 that I discovered you didn't have to lick yourself clean. Old habits die hard, you know. Oh, there you go, listening to me again. You'd think you'd have gotten past that already. I ended up in the Chantry, sure, but I didn't start there. Let's see, how do I explain this? I'm a bastard. And before you make any smart comments, I mean the fatherless kind. My mother was a serving girl in Redcliffe Castle who died when I was very young. Arl Eamon wasn't my father, but he took me in anyhow and put a roof over my head. He was good to me, and he didn't have to be. I respect the man, and I don't blame him anymore for sending me off to the Chantry once I was old enough. Arl Eamon eventually married a young woman from Orlais, which caused all sorts of problems between him and the king because it was so soon after the war. But he loved her. Anyhow, then you, Arlessa, resented the rumors which pegged me as his bastard. They weren't true, but of course they existed. The Arl didn't care, but she did. So off I was packed to the nearest monastery at age 10, just as well. The Arlessa made sure the castle wasn't a home to me by that point. She despised me. Maybe. She felt threatened by my presence, I can see that now. I can't say I blame her. She wondered if the rumors were true herself, I bet. I remember I had an amulet with Andraste's holy symbol on it. The only thing I had of my mother's. I was so furious at being sent away, I tore it off and threw it at the wall and it shattered. Stupid, stupid thing to do. The Arl came by the monastery a few times to see how I was, but I was stubborn. I hated it there and blamed him for everything. And eventually, he just stopped coming. Yes, I'm quite sure. At any rate, I don't look anything like him. You'll see for yourself. Not that it stopped the rumors any. All I know is that the Arl is a good man and well loved by the people. He also was King Caelan's uncle, so he has a personal motivation to see Loghain pay for what he did. Anyway, that's really all there is to the story.
Alright, so one last person to talk to, and that's Morgan.
What do you wish of me? if you must. I was not born such. 'Tis a skill of Flemeth's, taught over many years in the wilds. The chastened have tales of we witches, saying that we assume the forms of creatures to watch them from hiding. When a child is alone and separate from his tribe, that is when we strike, dragging the young boy kicking and screaming to our lair to be devoured. A most amusing legend. So I assume. My mother has walked the wilds far longer than I. Who am I to suggest what things she has done and not done in her past? Why do you ask? Is there something specific you wish to know? The form of an animal is different from my own. One may study the creature, learn to move as it does, think as it does. In time, this allows one to become as it is. I gain nothing by studying another human. I already am the same as they are. I learn nothing. So the answer is no, my human form is the only one I possess. Anyone with sufficient will, but the act of transformation is a magical one. 'Tis a spell and thus requires a mage's talents. If you had a notion to learn such a skill for yourself, sadly, you must remain disappointed. There were nights when the wilds called to me, 'tis true. You look upon the world around you and you think you know it well. I have smelled it as a wolf, listened as a cat, prowled shadows that you never dreamed existed. But my life is as a human. I am under no illusions to the contrary. They do not shy away from me. To their senses, I believe I seem like any other of their species. As to what they think, I truly cannot say. Just as I am still human, no matter my form, they are still animals. Thus they cannot speak, even were I to ask. No, 'tis not unheard of in the remote corners of the world. There are traditions of magic outside of the circle of magi, despite what those mages would have you believe. Some of these traditions are old, indeed, passed down as carefully guarded lore from one generation to the next. The zealots of the Chantry would uproot all such practitioners if they could, but as luck have it, some still exist. My mother is such a one. Not all apostates use the forbidden blood arts. Maleficarum do, but to condemn all who do not fall under the circle's thrall for the sake of what might be is a dangerous path to walk. There are those who look on the word apostate as meaning freedom. Indeed. Have you an opinion on my abilities, then? Am I an unnatural abomination to be put to the torch?
They tied to a flagpole and tickled. I've never gotten that option before. I'm gonna do it.
I wouldn't advise it. But enough of such talk. Let us proceed, lest the dust gather on us.
I've never gotten that option before on this career. The many times since I've talked to her with that conversation, I've never gotten that option.
What do you wish of me? If you must. You are very cute to ask so many questions. And I am glad you are so glad. My mother has been hunted from time to time, yes, by Templar fools like Alistair, which should tell you how successful they generally were. Flemeth made a bit of a game of it, in fact. The Templars would come again, and she would look at me and smile and say that the fun was to begin once more. I found the game fun. I was too young to understand the truth behind what was happening. Flemeth would warn them once. 'Twas a warning they inevitably failed to heed. And then the true game began. Often Flemeth would use me as bait, a little girl to scream and run and lure the Templars deeper into the wilds and to their doom. 'Twas a game, and I a young girl. If I didn't get to play, I would have been very upset. Thankfully, the Wilds is a vast place. Once they found us, Flemeth would simply move us elsewhere, and we would be lost within the forest once again. I did not understand the danger we faced until I was much older. I had never heard of apostates or maleficarum. You do not know? The zealots use that word for any magic they do not control. The Chantry sees any mages not leashed to the Circle of Magi as apostates, and apostates could become maleficarum, evil mages that resort to blood magic and become demon-enslaved abominations. It may even be true. Still, those of us who prefer freedom see no reason to submit.
No, if you say so.
How agreeable of you. Enough of this talk. Let us return to the task at hand. What do you wish of me? If you must. Why do you ask me such questions? I do not probe you for pointless information, do I? Any number of cats could inform you of the answer to that question, but have it your way. What is it you asked? If I grew up in the wilds? A curious question. Where else would you picture me? For many years it was simply Flemeth and I. The wilds and its creatures were more real to me than Flemeth's tales of the world of man. In time, I grew curious. I left the wilds to explore what lay beyond, never for long. Brief forays into a civilized wilderness. For the most part, Flemeth taught me well. For all that I had been taught, however, the truth of the civilized lands proved to be overwhelming. I was unfamiliar with so much. So confident and bold was I, yet there was much that Flemeth could never have prepared me for. Equal parts daring and foolhardy, perhaps. Only once was I accused of being a witch of the wilds, and that by a chastened who happened to be traveling with a merchant caravan. He pointed and gasped and began shouting in his strange language, and most assumed he was casting some curse upon me. I acted the terrified girl, and naturally, he was arrested. Men are always willing to believe two things about a woman. One, that she is weak, and two, that she finds him attractive. I played the weakling and battered my eyelashes at the captain of the guard. Child's play. The point being that I was able to move through human lands fairly easily. Whatever humans think a witch of the wild looks like, 'tis not I. Not that I did not have trouble. There are things about human society which have always puzzled me, such as the touching. Why all the touching for a simple greeting? To begin with, yes. What is the point of touching my hand? I find it an offensive intrusion. There were many nuances that Flemeth could never tell me of. When to look into another's eyes, how to eat at a table, how to bargain without offending. None of these things I knew. I still do not understand it all, truth be told, but then I gave up long ago any hope of doing so. When I returned to the wilds last, I swore to Flemeth that I had no intention of leaving again. I have no qualm with the mission I have been set to. Flemeth was correct, like it or not. The Darkspawn are an enemy of all. Well, let's get on with it before the ground opens up and swallows us, yes? What do you wish of me? If you must. Well, that depends, does it not? What does she seem to be? Sometimes I do wonder the very same thing. Tell me, how much do you know of the tale? The one that the chastened still tell of my mother, to frighten them into obedience. Ah, I see. That does explain much. I can relay what Flemeth once told me herself, and you can decide whether or not 'tis the truth, if you desire. As the tale is sung by the bards, there was a time when Flemeth was young and beautiful, a fair lass in a land of barbarian men, the desire of any who saw her. Many centuries before this land was even named Ferelden, the tales say that Flemeth fell in love with Osen the bard, and fled the castle of her husband, the Dreadlord Conobar, and that he swore vengeance for her infidelity. In truth, my mother claims that 'twas Osen who was her husband, and Conobar the jealous lord who looked on from afar. Lord Conobar approached young Osen and offered him wealth and power in exchange for his lovely wife, and Osen agreed. The life of a bard is a poor one, and love fades in the wake of hunger. 'Twas Flemeth who suggested the arrangement. All would have been well had Lord Conobar kept his end of the bargain. But he was a foul man who bargained with coin he did not possess. Osen was led off to a field and slain, left for dead. Flemeth spoke to the spirits and learned of the deed, and swore revenge. Spirits first, and 'twas they who slew Conobar. Flemeth did not turn to the demon until much later. Lord Conobar's allies chased Flemeth, you see, chased her to the wilds, and there she hid. There she found the demon, and he made her strong. The legends all speak of the great hero Cormac, he who defeated Flemeth and her great army when she invaded the lowlands centuries later. All lies. The truth of the matter is that there was never an invasion. As Flemeth tells it, the Chastened never raised an army under her banner, and she never fought with any warrior named Cormac. Cormac led a brutal civil war against his own people, and later claimed it was to vanquish evil that had taken root amongst the lords. Thus, he was hailed a hero. Flemeth was only attached to the legend much later. Perhaps 'twas due to the great war with the Chastened that eventually came, but Mother claims not to know how it began. I do not believe everything that Flemeth claims. Oft it seems her bitterness has colored her memories. But on the whole, yes, I believe this tale, if not all. The demon within her has transformed her into something else. An abomination, perhaps, some would say. I know not. I only know my mother is clever, and she is part of the wilds as it is part of her. But she is no immortal. She bleeds. A blade in her heart would kill her like any other, were it lucky enough to find her. You ask if I have sisters. I have asked of this myself. The stories tell of many witches of the wilds, after all, not just the one, and these tales existed long before I did. Flemeth refuses to speak of other daughters, if they existed, so should I believe I am her first? I doubt that too. The Chastened tell of a falling out between Flemeth and her daughters. They say that one day she hunted them all through the wilds and ate their hearts. It may be true. I have never seen another witch or heard of one. Perhaps one day Flemeth will eat my heart as well. How often is this usually? Always? If not always, then when is it not true? There are more things in this world and the next than you or I could ever hope to understand. What Flemeth became is a mystery, I suspect, even to her. Flemeth tells it with far more embellishment than I, but you are welcome. Dare I ask of your own mother? Few are abominations of legend, 'tis true, but I find myself curious, nevertheless. Ah, then you have my sympathies, for what it is worth. Which is very little, I am certain. It matters not. Let us move on.
Alright, that's enough of the chitty chat for now. We're gonna head out to the next location.